Beginning June 1st of 2013, a piece of law that was signed into law by President Barack Obama in July of 2010 comes to fruition, and it's going to greatly affect, potentially, those that live in the White Earth Tribal Reservation and are members of the White Earth Nation. I'm talking about the Indian Tribal Law and Order Act of 2010. A lot of people might not even realize that this piece of legislation was passed or went through, but it could have profound effects on tribal communities, not just here in Minnesota, but across the nation. The White Earth Tribal Government is in fact one of the very first to opt into the 2010 Tribal Law and Order Act, and the very first in the state of Minnesota. So what is this new Tribal Law and Order Act, and what does it actually do? Who will it affect? Well, if you're a non-tribal member who lives within the confines of the reservation, it should have no bearing or no effect on you. If you're a non-tribal member who is passing through the reservation or visiting for whatever reason, this should have no bearing and no effect on you. If you're a tribal member who does not live on the reservation, this should have no effect on you. But if you're a tribal member who does live on the reservation, or a tribal member who goes to the reservation, visits the reservation, or stays there, this could have an impact on you. Now, the point of the 2010 Tribal Law and Order Act is really to help bring more security to the White Earth Nation as well as other tribes like it across the country. I mean, there's no secret that the amount of poverty, crime, drug use, violence against women, sexual assaults, etc. explodes on a reservation compared to the rest of the general public in every single major category. Of course, poverty also comes in line with a lot of those categories, but you've got to deal with one issue to help the other issue, I guess, too. But what this Tribal Law and Order Act is supposed to do is allow more federal power on the reservation when it comes to prosecuting crimes. The idea being a habitual repeat offender actually being now subject to federal prosecution and federal law as opposed to state or tribal, which both have, let's just say, a smaller hammer in order to influence justice or in order to distribute justice. In other words, in a federal law, if you're sentenced to 10 years means 10 years. Unlike at state law, where if you're sentenced to 10 years really means about 6.5 years. The rest is probation. And in tribal courts, they don't have authority right now over criminal law. It's all state or federal. They have law and tribal authority over civil law. However, this would give tribal courts some ability to have their own legal law and be able to, implement that the way they see fit. But there's a catch to all this. Before the federal government would actually look at any case, the state, the county, the tribe would have to refer to the federal government, and they would then have to choose to prosecute that crime themselves. But there's another catch. At this moment, not a single dollar of federal money has been allocated to this program. Not a single prosecutor, not a single penny for extra prosecutions of these future crimes to be committed on tribal lands. So I really ask you, what is the point of the 2010 Tribal Law and Order Act other than window dressing? And unless the federal government can get a budget together that includes this, will it ever be implemented fully? And without full implementation, what's the point of it? I mean, the idea is to try to hopefully save maybe the state some money by taking some of these off them and give the tribe another hammer in order to try to get control over what's happening on the reservation. But the federal government can deny any case referred to it. Who's to say it's going to have any influence at all? So if you want to see this act go into effect if you're a tribal member, I'd say you need to talk to your politicians right now and find out how they plan to fund this. Because at this moment, it's only weeks away and there's not a dollar for it.